In today's episode, we're sitting down with Robyn Laub, a Central Florida-based occupational therapist with over 25 years of experience. Robyn's expertise extends across a wide spectrum, helping children with developmental delays, sensory processing disorders, and autism gain independence. She's the creator of U Power, Powered by You, a highly sought-after educator who develops specialized courses for pediatric occupational therapy professionals. Did I mention that she's a mentor? Robyn's story is one of dedication and innovation, where her passion for teaching blends seamlessly with her deep knowledge of psychology, making her a true powerhouse in the field of pediatric therapy. Well, welcome, Robyn Laub. We've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm excited that we're making it happen.
Me too. Thank you for your patience, and I'm so excited that we could make this happen.
Yeah. So you bring a lot of experience of 13. And I just kind of want to hear your background. Like, where have you worked? Where are you
Sure.
today? How did you get here?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm nearing 30 years of experience as an OT, all pediatrics. I did start at Miami Children's Hospital back in the 90s, and I got to see children with all kinds of things going on, inpatient, outpatient. But I developed an immediate love for my outpatient kiddos, especially those that had some sensory issues. That sort of became my passion. After that, I did move up to the Orlando area, which is where I still am and have been here for many years. I worked in a private practice that focused in on sensory processing deficits. So I had this incredible mentoring opportunity where, I was mentored
Yeah.
and learned how to be the therapist that I am today. That, along with, lots of continuing ed and lots of reading and just diving in and learning in any possible way that I could. And about 5 years later, I started my own private practice on a very small scale because I was also a new mom, and I have pretty much been doing that ever since. I've taken
Wow.
a couple back steps during the last 20 something or other years of doing my own private practice. I have taught in an OTA program.
Okay.
I've even led that program as well, and I've spent time working in some private schools, as well as really consulting a lot with many schools here in town,
Mhm.
but always maintaining at least a small, if not large, or medium-sized private practice, which is what I'm still doing today. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I'm 27 years and I'm still finding like there's still so much to learn. Do you feel that way too?
Oh, 100%. We're never done learning.
No.
I do mentor others now, but I tell them I'm going to learn just as much from you as you are from me. That yes, I'm here to support you and guide you because I have the
Yeah.
experience to pull from, but you're coming in with newer information. You're coming in with your own observations and your own ability levels and what you've learned from others, as well as your schooling. And we're going to take what you know and what I know, and we're going to piece it all together. And that's what it's always about.
Mhm.
Yes, I work for myself and I have for many years, but that doesn't mean I don't tap into others. I have a network here in town that if I'm like, I'm a little stumped, or I need some guidance, or I just want to talk through something, I always have
Yeah.
somebody to reach out to. And it really just kind of, sometimes you just need that jolt of, oh yeah, that's what I can do, or that's
Right.
direction I should go with
Yeah.
this child. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Or
We're
I do
never
know
done.
what I'm doing. Yes, I
Or
am
yes,
right.
validation sometimes is nice because we all have imposter syndrome. I don't care if we have 27 seconds of experience or 27 years of experience. We all go through that. Am I really doing what's right for this child?
Right.
Different times.
I wish
Absolutely.
that would go away. That would be really nice. But
It would
I
be.
guess it keeps us like humble and learning. So that's good. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So you have you power and then powered by you developmental consultants. Tell me, are those the same under the same umbrella? Are they different? I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, I'm just gonna ask.
I don't know what I'm doing these days. No. So I have developmental consultants, and that's my baby. That's my therapy practice. That's what I do as an OT. I do my mentorship. through developmental consultants, but of
Okay.
course, my individual therapeutic approaches are all under developmental consultants. You Power, Powered by You, is something that is a business that I started 2, 3, I guess about 3 years ago, kind of during the pandemic. I began to do some parent trainings, and I began to work with some older kiddos, middle school, even high school and beyond. And at that time, it was all on Zoom because, that was back in 2020 was,
Yeah.
of course, we were all remote. And I started to just do some coaching and some organizational executive function type approaches, which included self-regulation, but it also
Mhm.
included, self-regulation techniques in order to maintain focus and to maintain regulation, to
Mhm.
study and to get organized. And as I was doing that and working with some of these adolescents, but also their parents, especially because parents were facilitating school at that point, I was like, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
So I took some of the executive function work that I had done and continuing ed that I had done, and I started to put together a program that I call You Power, Powered by You. I did make it its own separate business. So I have my coaching business, and then of course I have my therapy practice. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gosh, that sounds amazing. Like that curriculum should be part of high schools, right?
I think so. I do.
Yeah.
I think so. I have 2 kids of my own who are now finished with high school. They're both in college, but seeing what they went through throughout high school, seeing how different it is, from when I was in high school,
Mhm.
um, different it is, today, not just from the academic perspective and some of the academic pressures that our kiddos feel today, but also the expectation to keep up with assignments that are all just somewhere in cyberspace. That's a lot
Yes.
to ask of a very still newly developing brain. Those, let's say, 15-year-olds, for example, that can do college classes academically or cognitively, but have no idea how to initiate something that's that complex, or no idea how to organize themselves or organize their approach to
Mhm.
tackle that. And so that's another reason, watching my own 2 children go through the stressors and the frustrations of juggling and trying to figure out how to get themselves organized when, again, their brains are not really ready to do that on their own,
Mm.
was another reason that U Power was born. Mhm.
Awesome. Do you use a particular like planner? How do you go about teaching kids how to like, I'm assuming you're teaching them like how to set deadlines, break down the task,
Sure.
all of that.
It it really depends. I go off of the notion that we need to see time. There
Mhm.
actually is a program that I went through and learned as well and became certified in, but also did for my own sake,
Okay.
called Seeing My
See,
Time.
what
Seeing
is
My
it?
Time.
Okay.
Yep, Seeing My Time. Mary D. Sklar. I like to give her credit everywhere that I can because I definitely learned so much, again, for myself, but also that I can support others with. Um, so using that Seeing My Time program along with self-regulation that we know as therapists, along with that metacognition, helping our kids to learn how they learn, not how I want
Mhm.
them to learn and organize, not how their mom or dad wants them to learn or organize, but how does their brain work so that they can develop their organizational system
Mhm.
with help, of course. And so it's very individualized. However, because this may not be a popular answer, but because most kids today are opposed to planners, I actually don't even push them any longer. If I have a
I
student
wouldn't. Mhm.
right? If I have a student who says, "Oh, my mom, my dad, they bought me this great planner and I'm taking it to school every day," I would jump for joy and support it any way that I could. But at this juncture, I don't even really suggest it or recommend it unless they show interest. So
Mhm.
I do a completely different approach since I just am trying to follow what our schools are doing these days.
Yeah.
And the way I do it is I teach kids because so they try to keep so much in their brain. They try to keep all the information. If a teacher says, we have a test next Tuesday, and they know it's in the computer somewhere, depending on the system that their school uses. We have a test next Tuesday and you have this assignment to do. And again, it's all kind of swirling around in their brains. It's also, again, in cyberspace. I teach them to, as soon as they get home from school, or even if they're on the school bus or in the car on the way home, I teach them to do a brain dump and get it all out of
Mm,
their head onto something. If it's on paper, great. And I do provide some planner pages. Not that they don't go to school with the child unless they want it to, but most of them don't. That are at home, that they can use if they prefer to write it, which of course is what I do recommend. But some kids are not going to go home and write anything down. I understand. So then we can use a note section of their phone or something like that. But regardless, we've got to get the information out of their brain and somewhere in one place.
yeah.
Then I teach them a system of figuring out what they actually have time to do today. Because even
Mm,
though they've put, that's why checklists don't often work.
right.
Because if they have a checklist, they don't really know how long all of those things are going to take them. And maybe they have soccer practice and they have to have dinner with their family, of course, which we want them to have. And how much time do they actually have left to focus on school? And we also want them to have some fun, do something
Mhm.
enjoyable, something relaxing, something that they can look forward to. So aside from school, I want them to be able to build in, even if it's just a little bit of time for something for them, which
Yeah.
is so important to teach, as well as, any chores that they have to do. They are a member of a family unit. And so when we look at all of those things, we can start to figure out how much time those assignments are going to take them and what they might need to do today, but what they might need to move to tomorrow.
Mhm.
And so taking that approach along with a few other, activities and things like that, can really help them to feel more successful and not just feel like they have a never ending list of things they need to take care of that maybe rarely ever completely gets checked off. So many
Right.
of our kids see that list and they shut down, right?
So
They
many of
shut.
us do too, right? Like,
I do. I do. I have to sometimes break down my own lists because
yes,
if I see how many things I really need to do, I walk away and do nothing.
me too.
So that's a very typical response. And so we need to teach that task initiation, but how do we teach task initiation? We've got to regulate first. So what can we do to regulate so that we can conquer those tasks? And that's how we build an executive function. It's not just about how to get organized. It's about checking in with yourself and being aware of what you can and cannot accomplish in a day
Mhm.
and how you go about approaching your organizational
Right.
structure. Yeah,
Why is this not being taught?
I have no
It's
idea.
crazy. It's crazy. Like my daughter just came home last night and she has a horse and still has all that. By the time she got to homework, it's like 8 and she's like, I hate school. And they just have so much homework and it's like they don't teach kids how to do homework.
No. And not only that, when they come home without a plan because they didn't write it in a planner, which is not their fault, because
Right.
it's just all out in cyberspace. Now they have to at 8 p.m. make a plan. If I had to make a plan at 8 o'clock at night, I would avoid it as well. I
Yeah.
want to know what my plan is before I get home so that I know that I can handle it.
Yes.
Or that if I can't handle it, at least I still have some energy in me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to know, okay, I have to move some things versus at 8 o'clock at night when I have to make that plan and then I shut down because it looks like way too much. So it is,
Right.
again, it goes back to that regulation state and recognizing that if I know at 3 o'clock that my night tonight might be a little bit long, I'm going to set myself up for that success. If I don't know because I just came home and everything's swirling in my brain and in my computer, and I go through my extracurriculars and
Mhm.
I have dinner and I clean the dishes afterwards, and then it's 8 p.m. and now I have to make a plan. I'm done. I'm done. I'm
Plan
gonna
is
shut.
Netflix, right?
My plan would definitely be Netflix.
Yeah, I'm with
Absolutely.
you
Yeah,
100%. So are families contacting you and you're working with kids in groups or is it individualized?
I do both. I do
Okay.
both. I do work with groups. I have specific groups just for middle school and groups for high school.
Okay.
And then I also do one-on-one coaching as well. It really just depends on what the child needs at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you find that the kids are receptive? I mean, that is kind of that it's a tricky age. I love that age, but it's tricky.
sure. I would say, well, for individual coaching, yes. And the
Okay.
reason they're receptive for individual coaching is I won't accept them if they're not. And I don't mean that I
Well, it
rarely have
makes sense.
I mean, I really have to turn somebody away, but coaching is a team effort. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to be pulling them through it because then we won't be successful. They won't be successful. I'll feel frustrated. That's not that's not necessary. So I always start with a meet and greet. Coaching isn't therapy, so I don't assess and do it unless I find that they need more. Then
Yeah.
obviously we'll go down the road of assessments and things of that nature. But for a typical coaching client, I'm not going to do assessments and things like that, but I'm going to do a meet and greet and we're going to get to know each other and we're going to build rapport. My goal is to build trust. If I can't build trust because they're 16 or 17 or 14, if I can't build that trust, we're not going to move forward. Not
Mhm.
because I don't want to, but because we need to work a little bit more on building trust. Otherwise,
Yeah.
again, we're not going to have that coaching client relationship. I want lots of feedback from my clients. I want them to feel comfortable reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I'm stuck. I need some guidance." Or, "Hey, I got everything turned in today for the first time," or whatever it happens to be. I want them to
Yeah.
have that comfort level to utilize me as not just a coach, but also like an accountability partner so that they can learn how to self advocate, which is such an
Mhm.
important skill for adolescents transitioning to adulthood. So generally, we build that trust and that rapport first, then we're good. In my groups, I don't have the opportunity to work on all of the trust building
Yeah.
beforehand. So if they're thrown into a group against their will, they just may not contribute as much, but hopefully they're hearing other kids and what they have to contribute and they're still getting something out of it.
Right. Right. Okay. So you have that, which is amazing. And then you're also mentoring
I do
therapists,
some
correct?
mentoring. Yes, I
Okay.
do some mentoring. I do. I've done some group mentorships and I've also, which has been amazing and so fun. We'll meet in the evenings and, it might be 6 or 8 OTs that some of them are brand new. Some of them have a few years experience.
Yeah.
I've even had a couple of OTs throughout my group mentorships that have more experience than I have, but they want a refresher. They just want a think tank. They want to bounce things off of others.
Mhm.
And yes, so that is it's generally a 6 week program, about an hour and a half each week. That and then we have our forum where we can communicate and chat in between. And then I do some individual mentoring as well if somebody is interested in just some one-on-one, just getting some extra support, getting, again, think tank, bouncing ideas. It's generally for those therapists that just don't have that maybe they're on their own and they don't have that mentoring within the
Yeah.
company that they work for.
Yeah. It's rough if you get out of school and you go into a setting and you're not getting mentorship.
Yeah.
It's a little daunting. And
It's
you're just
overwhelming.
doing this. Yeah. You're doing the same thing over and over because you're not seeing anything different.
Right. And you're not
Yeah.
getting feedback. You're not getting the
Yeah.
constructive feedback that we all need. We all need
Right.
that. Yeah.
Are
Teachers
you?
get mentors, a lot speech and language therapists get mentors at least for their first year or two after
Yeah.
they graduate. But OT, especially in pediatrics, we don't often have that built-in mentorship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are you finding that they're wanting kind of the same information?
In what way? Like from a
Well,
clinical.
is it generally geared towards like sensory or, are there questions kind of in the same realm that the
I
field
would
is missing?
say they know that that's where my focus is, but I do get a
Okay.
lot of school-based therapists as well, where they can implement some sensory techniques, but that's not going to be their main and only focus. That is very easy to do. If it's a therapist who works with children that are medically complicated or medically fragile, I won't recommend that they do mentoring with me. I don't think
Yeah.
I have the expertise. If it's somebody looking specifically for feeding, I won't recommend that they do mentoring with me, but I will refer them. There's some
Yeah.
great leading mentors in this country. So I'll, refer them just like we would any as a therapist. If it's
Right.
not my expertise level or area, I'm going to get you to the right person, and I'm not going to pretend like I know everything.
Right. Even though I'm sure you do. Right.
Oh, no. Thank you, but no.
What advice would you give a new therapist that's starting in pediatrics? Would it be get some mentorship?
Of course, come to me. No.
Yes, right?
Yes, don't stop asking questions. You
Yes.
know what's funny is I actually might want to retract that statement, because I did a nice a forum about mentorship at the AOTA conference this past spring, and one of the we had the therapists in our forum divided up into newer therapists and therapists with more experience, and they were on two separate sides of the area of the room. And the newer therapists were saying, I'm nervous to ask questions. I'm nervous to ask, the more seasoned therapists. I don't want them to think that I don't know something, or that I'm not smart, or I don't, that I'm
Yeah.
incompetent. One of my responses, of course, the seasoned therapists were like, please ask the questions. Of
Yeah.
course, you're not going to think that, you made it this far. We're not going to think you're
Right.
incompetent. Um, but one of the things that I brought up during that time was, it's not just about asking questions. It's actually about stretching what you already know. So yes, of course, we all need to ask questions when we have questions. Those of us with experience and those of us without a lot of experience. If I have a
Right.
question or you have a question, we need to ask, or find the answer somehow, some way. That's just that's our ethical responsibility
Mhm.
as a
Mhm.
clinician. But sometimes we just need to talk things through. We just need to have these
Absolutely.
conversations and talk about what we already are doing, and then stretch what we're doing into more. And so
Yeah.
it's not about, I don't know what to do in this situation, although that's an important thing to be working on and to be
Right.
finding the resources for. But here's what I'm already doing, and I know it's going well. I wonder what I can add to it. I wonder how I can stretch it. I wonder if I
Yeah.
can, how I can incorporate another one of their goals. Something to stretch what we're already doing, and what we already do know is
Mhm.
equally as important, because sometimes
Mhm.
we don't know that we have a question. We don't realize we have a question. We don't realize there's something we don't realize.
No, you just feel like I'm stuck, right? I'm just stuck. I'm here and I can't get past that hill.
Right. Or I'm not stuck, but I don't know that I'm moving forward as quickly as I should be or want to
Mhm.
be.
Mhm.
Or I just want to enhance it. I just want to know more. I just want
Yeah.
to dig deeper. So don't be afraid to dig deeper. Whether it's sensory, whether it's postural, whether it's reflexes, whether it's behavior, whether it's, it doesn't matter. Just keep digging deep, because children are complicated little
Oh, yes,
creatures.
they are. They
And
so are.
right, and everything overlaps. Speech and language, and the PT side of things, the mental health side of things, the behavioral side of things, the home environment. Don't be afraid to dig deeper. That's another piece of advice I would give.
Mhm. And it's just so broad, right? Our
Mhm.
job as OTs is so broad with pediatrics.
It is.
Like sometimes I'm like, I should have been a hand therapist. No,
I
I'm
know.
going to change
I
that.
think sometimes that too. I wish I
Yeah.
could work on this thing.
Yes. It doesn't
Not
extend
thinking,
beyond that, right? And our
right?
job is just like, you can go in and talk about social skills and toileting and, all these different things. It just goes forever. Yeah.
And don't beat yourself up for not being an expert in every area. I am definitely not an expert in every area, and I don't
No,
want
you
to be.
can't be. No,
Right,
no.
right.
I tell my therapists at the clinic when they start, I do set up a mentorship program with them right away. That's just part of our our program. But I said, in about 6 months, you're going to come to me and you're going to say, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you do, but you finally get to the point you're like, oh my God. I remember that feeling of, parents watching you and they're going to ask me a question. I'm not going to know the answer. They're going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. And you just need support with that, because it is just like you're saying, you do know the information. You just need somebody to ask the right questions of you to pull it out.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Just digging deeper. Keep digging
Yeah.
deeper. Hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about burnout, because I don't know if you read any of the Facebook groups. They're mainly in the job market stuff, but just more and more and more especially pediatric OTs are leaving the profession and just OTs in general, and just talking about burnout, burnout, burnout. And these are
Mhm.
people that went to school, paid a ton of money, maybe worked for 2 years, and now they're gone. What do
Mm.
you think that's about?
Mm. I think that's a really great question, and it probably depends on the setting. I know there's so much pressure for therapists to have the percentages and to to keep everything up, or they're not going to get paid. I know I've worked in those settings before
Yeah.
where somebody doesn't show up, I don't get paid. Another person doesn't show up, I don't get paid. So then I book my schedule bigger and broader than I want
Yeah.
to with, 10 clients in a row or whatever, because
Right.
I know a percentage of them aren't going to come. And that can feel very frustrating. I also wonder, I don't want to say that this is fact, but I often wonder if some of the burnout is also coming from whether it's, I don't want to say lack of progress in the children or
Mm,
limited progress. I find that today, since I have worked now more than a whole generation through,
yeah.
now some of the children I worked with at the beginning are, are parents themselves. And I find that parents are spread so thin. Parents are so overwhelmed for so many different reasons that they struggle often to follow through and carry over at home, which then
Hmm.
limits or yeah, limits
Yeah.
the progress that the child makes.
Yeah.
And that can feel very frustrating as a therapist because our goal is to meet goals, right?
Hmm.
We're not there to do the same task over and over, and we're not there just for compensatory techniques. We
Hmm.
are we're trained to help that brain learn and grow and help the body, increase its strength and its coordination and dexterity and everything. And if we're not seeing that, or if we feel like we're kind of doing the same thing every day, that can also create some burnout. So I'm
Yes.
not sure if it's just the workload that's creating that feeling of burnout, and if it's the pressure for productivity,
Yeah.
or if it's also the feeling of, are we making any progress? What am I doing? How am I really
What?
helping this child?
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, we've worked in the field the same amount of time, and it's like, I don't know about you, but when I was in my early 20s, I didn't have the dysregulated kids that we have now, not to this extent at
Oh,
all. We
no.
had the dyspraxic kiddos and, but it was just a different, and the other thing that I feel like has changed is they would come into your clinic and they were so excited. It was like a candy store, like all this equipment, and now we have kids come in and they're like, back on their phone. Like it is not the most interesting thing in the room. And so we're having to compete with that too and be like, juggling and tap dancing and all that stuff.
Absolutely. No,
But that's what it is. We can't change that. And I'm not sure like how we as a profession kind of pivot with that.
sure. Sure, absolutely. And I think that, I know for me, when I work with a child where I find that progress is limited for whatever reason, and I don't point fingers, I don't place blame, but maybe the family is spread so thin, and maybe there's just not the time and the ability to follow through or carry things
Mhm.
over at home. So therefore, some of the clinical things, all that underlying stuff that we were
Yeah.
taught, that we got so excited about. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
neuroscience was, I was like, talk about a kid in the candy store, give me more, give me more. But sometimes we also, as therapists, have to know when to go to the top down approach, when to continue to support that child, but maybe support them in different ways. Maybe support them by teaching them what their body needs, even though we know I should be putting them on a swing and spinning them in circles and giving them heavy
Right.
work or what have you. Maybe it's not the time and the place, because just coming to see me once a week to do that isn't going to carry over, isn't going to change the nervous system.
Hmm.
So I'm going to just shift it and take a different approach. Maybe I need to do more school readiness if they're of that age, and
Hmm.
approach them in that way. So sometimes we have to look at ourselves and not beat ourselves up because of
Hmm.
the difficulty with again, I keep using the word progress, but with moving them forward, and we
Yeah.
need to shift our approach. And we need to try to communicate with the parent. Again, not in any finger pointing way
No.
at all, but more so in a supportive way of saying, I think I want to shift to this way of doing things because I think that's going to better support your child where he is today or where she
Right.
is and
Right.
really appreciate that. They
Yeah.
genuinely will say thank you, because they often, I don't know how you feel, but I find that if I'm like, gotta do these reflex exercises and we've got to do these strengthening exercises and the parents aren't doing them, I often find that they feel ashamed. And that's never
Absolutely.
ever what we want.
Yeah.
And so
No.
we need to feel comfortable and confident trying to tap in a little bit more and say, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking we should try this approach instead of the approach we were taking, or
Mhm.
shift our approach, again,
Mhm.
so that it doesn't feel like, oh gosh, I failed and I didn't get that done with my kid, but more
Yeah.
so, oh, she wants to support, you know, her morning routine and how my child can be more independent getting ready in the morning, wouldn't that help the whole family? So
Right.
really looking at that family system, um,
Mhm.
figure out where actually is the priority need and being willing to step outside of our own box of what we
Yes.
think the child should be doing or getting right now.
Absolutely. We have to get to the parents' motivation or they're not going to stick, they won't stick with it because we won't stick with something if it's not motivating.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
find when I'm feeling the burnout or the frustration, I
Mhm.
have to look inward
Mhm.
versus looking at, productivity or what have you. That doesn't mean that that's not part of the problem. It absolutely is a contributing
Yes.
factor. But I want to look inward and say, what can I shift in me so that I can be the best therapist for this child or this group of children or all of these
Yeah.
children that I work with so that I can avoid the burnout, but still be the best I can be for this child and help them
Yes.
to learn and grow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it is often like I know I feel burnout when I feel like I'm not making progress with kids, but it it's not that I can't make progress. I'm just going about it the wrong way. Like you were saying, I'm tapping, that nail's just not going to go in. So I need to find a different spot and get
Yeah.
in there. And
And
that's
I'm not,
okay.
it is. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure that that's taught in school,
I don't
you know,
think it is.
and I think again, kind of looking at this next generation, right? And I hate to age myself, but it's the truth. There's so much there's so much perfectionism. I know because I have two kids that age,
Yeah.
two college kids. And there's so much pressure to be perfect the first time. And I see that in the newer therapists as well, when it's like, oh gosh, do you know how many of my sessions were a bust? Where I was like, well, that didn't work.
That didn't work.
you
Yeah.
know we're gonna scratch that one from the record, and we're gonna grow with it, and we're gonna hug the child at the end, and we're gonna say, let's try something different next time, and we're gonna
Yeah.
high five them, and we're gonna go home and look within and say, what do I have to do differently?
Yeah.
Right. And because if I keep having sessions that end in, well, that didn't really work, I will absolutely leave the profession. Right. So
Yes.
looking in and letting go of the perfectionism, letting go of every session needs to be perfect, and being willing to step back. If you're
Mhm.
not connecting with that child in the moment, and you usually do, step back for a minute, play a
Mhm.
game,
Yeah.
play a game, reconnect, and then see where the session takes you instead of, I have to stick with my plan. I have to stick with my plan today was to do
Yes.
A, B. Well, maybe your plan ends up being X, Y, and Z, but you couldn't think about that because you weren't regulated. So sit back,
Yes.
play a game, or do something with their hands, or do something that's just calm and fun, and then
Mhm.
see what that next step where that next step takes you,
Mhm.
instead of being stuck on, but I needed to do my plan, or beating yourself up because the plan didn't
Well, I've
go.
got to follow the goals. I've got to be able to document on the goals, right?
And you
Yeah.
can document on goals even if you did X, Y, and Z instead of
Yes.
A, B, and C.
Yes. And it's that need to have control, right? Like this, I brought in these toys. This is what we're going to use because if it goes sideways, then I don't know what to do.
Right.
But teaching them that it follow the kid's lead, just play. And it's funny, we have a great student right now. But we were just having this conversation, like, go ahead and let yourself go a little bit more, get crazy, get silly, because, we can see that you're thinking about what's happening and what you're going to do next. For now, stop and just see where that gets you.
Yep.
And then you can rein it in differently. But I think we feel like we always have to have control of the situation because they're bringing their child in for therapy and we have to,
Yep.
but that's not the
Children
case.
pick up on that, don't you think? I mean,
Yeah.
look at
Oh,
adults.
yeah.
Children know if you are not at your best, right?
Mhm.
They know, they feel it, and then they're not at their best. So, look, we're humans. We might
Yes.
be therapists and we think we have superpowers, and many times we do, but we're
Yeah.
also human. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night. Maybe my kid, is giving me a hard time. My own kid, maybe what it doesn't matter what the reasoning is. Yes, we are taught in the OT code of ethics to check our problems at the door, and I stand very firm with that. But sometimes we're not at our best,
Yeah.
and we need to be okay with that, and we need to be okay with pulling back the control just a
Mhm.
little bit because our session is going to be so much better for
Mhm.
it. It's not
Yes.
really for your own personal sake. It
Yeah.
feels like it, and it feels selfish in the moment to sit back for a moment, but really your session is going to be so much better because
Mhm.
you've now regulated enough that you can now see what's going on in front of you
Mhm.
with that child. They're going to regulate more and they're going to connect and be willing to go with your flow at that
Yes.
point.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
I feel
Yeah,
if we could bottle that, that would be a game changer, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always have your plan B and your plan C or no plan at all.
Right.
Or no
I
plan at all.
yeah, I challenge my therapist. I'll be like, you should be able to do therapy with nothing, like literally a pencil. Not
Yeah.
that we're going to do handwriting with that pencil, but that pencil could be a rocket. It could be, whatever. And just that they'll be like, sometimes we have great therapists, but it's like, it's okay to get crazy. Use your own pretend mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
We're gonna I had a therapist that worked for me. She's phenomenal. She worked for me for a couple of years. She also was a student of mine when she was in school. And I would see her make even, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years out of school. I would see her make these detailed plans for each child that was coming in. And one day I actually did challenge her to throw it all away. And she was like, I could never. I said, don't literally throw it away, but close it. Put it inside of
Yeah.
your notebook, close it. You know the idea of what you want to accomplish. You always need to have the child's goals in mind. Of course, you need to know what you're
Mhm.
working on with that child, and then I just want you to go with the flow. And she struggled with that a little bit. If she's listening,
Mhm.
she knows who she is. She struggled with it a little bit. And that's okay because she needs to know what works for her and what doesn't. But
Yeah.
still, just don't be so married to your plan because
Yeah.
child might not have had breakfast that day. That
Yeah.
child may have a headache. They may have just failed a test. You just don't know. And
No.
we want to be ready and open for that versus stressed and worried because that's certainly where the burnout will
Right.
occur.
Right.
Mm.
And I'm sure you've experienced this, but sometimes I'll have a kiddo or in the past, I'll be like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now because and I'll just be like, God, take the wheel and then, just give it up and it'll be one of the best sessions. And like the students say, why'd you do that? I have no idea. It just felt right. It's just like
Yep.
intuitive and you can't explain it. So follow your gut.
Follow your gut. I love that you use the word intuitive.
Mhm.
Many times I'm making decisions based on my intuition in that moment.
Yes.
Again, I always know what I'm working on with a child. I
Yes.
always know what we're trying to accomplish and what their priority needs are. And
Right.
then I'm just going to kind of go with the flow at that point.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
feels so scary when
It
you
does.
are
Hmm.
newer, or you're just new to the pediatric profession, but it is absolutely, we know so much. We have been taught so much as
Hmm.
therapists. OT school is rigorous, and we have a lot of stuff inside of our brains.
Hmm.
Sometimes we need to relax, but also trust ourselves that we
Hmm.
have enough knowledge that we can pull it off. And again, in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, that session is so much better when I've done it that way versus the one where I had a strict plan.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Mhm.
The other piece that I notice is you're right. We have so much information, but so many of us just feel like everybody knows this information, right? And we do a horrible job at, sharing it with the world and with, research and everything as well.
OTs are probably we're really far behind on
Really far behind.
promoting what we do,
Hmm.
and educating
Hmm.
teachers, educating parents, educating the community, because it yeah, I do find that I just think people know what's in my brain because I've been doing it so long, or it's just so natural at this
Well, it just
point.
makes so much sense once you have it in your brain. It's like, oh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But actually people want the information
they
that
do.
they really do. Speech and language therapists, I want information from them. They want information from us. Teachers, they want information. So we need
Hmm.
to not be afraid even to use some of our time for education. Some of our time with the child. I had a session this week, where the child came in so dysregulated, and that was what he used to do. We used to have
Yeah.
severe regulation issues, and we haven't for the last several sessions. And so I wasn't expecting that, right? Of course, I
Yeah.
was expecting us to come in and get started with our normal day. Well, that was not going to happen. So I had to totally back up and be extremely flexible. But this child's dad comes into the sessions, especially when his son is struggling, and I of course welcome him in. It's not a problem at all. But I because the child was so dysregulated, um, I really use that time to, of course, help the child get more regulated, but to walk that dad through what I was doing each step of the way so that
Uh-huh.
he could potentially do that at home. Because,
Yeah.
of course, if the child is having that much trouble in that 1 hour with me, he's doing the same things at home and he's
Right.
struggling that much at home. I can tell a parent all day long, if you see this, do this. If you see this, do that. And of course, we have to spend our time sometimes just kind of talking at the parent,
Yeah.
but there's nothing like actually seeing it come to life. He saw his
Right.
child kicking and screaming,
Uh-huh.
literally hitting him, and the child was hitting his own dad, right? So out of control. He saw him go from that to a happy, really happy child that hugged me at the end, that gave me a big high five, that engaged in some games and engaged in some sensory work as well. But
Mhm.
the dad was able to see how we got to that point, not
Mhm.
just the outcome, but the process. And that
Yeah.
hopefully that's going to ease things at home, and in the parent's ability to intuitively try some of
Yes.
this stuff. Um, Versus, wait, what did Robin say we need to do?
I
Oh,
know.
try
She said
this.
something about deep pressure, but I don't remember. Yeah. Like,
Right.
let them experience it. Yes.
Let them experience it. And so that's how the whole session went. And again, was it anything that I had planned? No, it was nothing that I had planned.
But
Not
it
at
was
all.
probably the best session that dad had had, right? Because he got so much information and education from you.
Absolutely. And then quite frankly, I felt phenomenal afterwards too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we need that as therapists. We
Yes.
work really hard. If you're a good pediatric therapist, you are working very hard. So then when we get those sessions where we're like, oh my gosh, I pulled it off.
I know. How
And
did I do that?
how did I do that? And dad learned, and the child is happy, and we made some headway.
Yeah.
I'm very proud at that point, and I'm very, and we have the right to feel proud of
Yep.
ourselves. It feels good.
Hmm.
So that's, those are the things that keep me going after
Hmm.
27, almost,
Yes.
yeah, 7 years like you. Those are the
Yeah.
things that keep me going, not just the sessions where it went perfectly as planned, which those are lovely as well, but the
Hmm.
ones where I pulled it off and I pulled information out of my brain, even if it's from 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and had the great outcome, those are the ones that make me go, I can't wait to see this child again next week.
Great. Yeah.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what do you have up your sleeve for the next 5 years? Are you going to keep your executive
5
functioning
years?
going?
I don't know. I thought I
Okay,
would
how
be living
about year?
on an island in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'll join you.
Would you please?
Yes.
Yes. Um, so what do I have up my sleeve for the next 5 years? Probably more of the same.
Yeah.
Um,
Awesome.
I get older, I hope to not be on the floor quite as much, maybe mentoring some more therapists that can do that work so that maybe I can not be on the floor. But obviously I'm never going to stop working with children. That there's no way. I'm never going to stop doing the work that I do. I am in the process of developing an app that I'm very hopeful is going to support therapists as they are supporting the parents, as they are supporting, their children in their busy lives at home. Sometimes parents need some executive function help themselves and some
Yeah.
support, and keeping home programming and home exercises all in one database, all in one place. So I'm in the process of developing that, which I'd love to be able to shout out to the world really, really soon, and be able
We're
to,
excited.
support the other therapists to help them support their families.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
it was amazing to talk with you today. I could chat with you forever
I
and
know
just
we did.
talk
Yeah,
shop, but
yeah.
yes, I appreciate you being on today and can't wait to hear about your app coming out later.
Thank you.
Can you tell me one more time the name of the executive functioning course you spoke of?
Absolutely. You power, powered by you. So the
Okay.
letter U, power, powered by YOUU.
Okay. Now, do people have to be in your state to
No.
have their kids? No. Okay.
No, I've worked with families in different countries, and I've certainly worked across the states as well because it's coaching.
Oh,
Um,
I see.
right.
Mhm.
If I find that a child needs more of a therapeutic approach and they don't live in my state, I won't work with them. I will refer them. I will help them find somebody in, closer to home. But if it's strictly coaching that would benefit this particular child, then yeah, we can certainly work across state lines. I also do parent coaching. Sometimes, if the parents are homeschooling or heavily involved in other ways with their child, sometimes I'll work with the parents as well, and do some coaching with them also so they can best support their child. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, I'll put your website in the show notes. Anything else? Any way else to reach you? Are you on Instagram or
Um, I
not really?
do I know my handle?
It's okay. That's all right.
That that's definitely telling of my age and generation. Should I send it to you because I'm sure I can access it?
Sure, you can send it to me. And then one more thing, what was the course that you took for executive functioning? Time
Um,
something?
Seeing My Time was the first course I took many years ago.
Okay.
Seeing My Time, yes.
Okay, awesome. I will also try and find that and put that in the show notes too.
Wonderful. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you.